Former CIA employee and whistleblower Jeffrey Sterling has been released from prison after serving more than 3 years for violating the Espionage Act. Well, the activist and spokesman for Jeffrey Sterling is now on the line with me now, live. Arne Menconi. Arne, thank you very much indeed for joining me. We've got a couple of technical issues, but let's get to the case here. Can you enlighten me, what are the latest updates surrounding Jeffrey Sterling's release?
Thank you for having me on. Jeffrey's now doing in-home confinement at his home in St. Louis. He was in a halfway house for a couple of weeks, and prior to that, he served about 2.5 years in a federal penitentiary in Colorado.
Well, let's also look at some of the wording that the judges used as well. I mean, at the time, they said there was circumstantial evidence, and they said, so what new information is there that could clarify this circumstantial evidence that was used to convict Jeffrey, and has this become public since his release?
No, this is a very difficult case to unpack because this started back in about 2000 and 2001. Jeffrey was a CIA officer. He has a law degree, spoke perfect Farsi, and he was hoping to be shipped to work in the Middle East. Instead, prior to his assignment in the Middle East, they said that it wasn't going to work because he's too big and too black. And he said to them, "When did you realize that?" So they went from one job to another job to where he was desk jockeying in New York, and he decided at that point this isn't what he was signed up for in the CIA when he came in 1993. He backed off, he stepped down from the CIA, and he pressed discrimination charges. Those discrimination charges had to be dropped in the early 2000s. He even tried to rejoin the CIA and drop the discrimination charges in early 2000. Move ahead. During that time period, the reporter, New York Times reporter James Risen, now with The Intercept, was having about 50 conversations back and forth with Jeffrey. And then James Risen released a book about 2005 called State of War, in which he disclosed the CIA's botched release of nuclear plans to Iran. Even Jeffrey tried to tell a Senate Intelligence Committee about this information. They tried to go after James Risen to find out who his source was from 2011 to 2015, and this gets to your question. What was the circumstantial evidence? They couldn't find what they were going to do with James Risen. Just around that same time, they arrested Jeffrey at his offices where he was working in Missouri. So he was on hold while the Risen case was going on. When they dropped the Risen case because Obama did not want to go after a reporter because the heat was on Obama and the Obama administration because he was going after a journalist, they went and took Jeffrey to court. And by taking Jeffrey to court, the only type of evidence that they had was circumstantial evidence of metadata and CIA agents saying that it was a disgruntled employee that released information because of his discrimination case. Jeffrey has maintained his innocence for almost 17 years.
And in the meantime as well, while he was serving his sentence, he was repeatedly refused medical care for a heart condition that he said that he had. I mean, how is his health now? I mean, and has he been able to get treatment?
Yes, that's how I got involved in it. I was running for U.S. Senate. I heard about what was going on. I've worked with other whistleblowers like Daniel Ellsberg and John Kiriakou, so I actually had to go and do a vigil out inside the federal penitentiary in Denver, Colorado for several days, and we had to go and lobby a U.S. Senate office in order to get some very basic medical care. He was given some cursory care. He is going to be seeing a medical specialist hopefully in the next couple of weeks. But it's very complicated. You know, the requirements now that he's under in-house confinement are quite daunting, from making sure that he's doing his meeting with his caseworker, that he's handling all of his calls, that he's trying to continue looking for work. So we hope that in the next few weeks we'll have better news about how he's met up with his health.
Indeed. I mean, just to go back in time, I mean, the Bureau of Prisons claimed that Jeffrey Wood fabricated his heart condition and was trying to cause a scandal. So on the back of all this, going forward then, sorry about this, I mean, what kind of legal action might Sterling then pursue against the US government in light of his treatment and the allegations of discrimination at the CIA?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that question, and I would say that would not be a question that should be asked right now. I think the question that should be asked right now is, James Risen is being interviewed by journalists. James Risen just released a very important document calling out Donald Trump for being a traitor. But James Risen is never asked about Jeffrey Sterling. Journalists are never asking about Jeffrey Sterling or talking about it. And this is a man who's become an invisible man, a forgotten man who is, in my mind, a hero, a man that has been mistreated because he's black. The ACLU wouldn't even handle this case. And so we have to reach out to other types of outlets and able to tell his story.
Indeed. And finally, on one question, I mean, what are Jeffrey's plans now that he's free?
Well, I talk about 3 times a week to his wife, Holly. These are people with the utmost integrity, and he's rebuilding his relationship with Holly. Unfortunately, their cats had passed away. He wants to get back, decompress, take care of his health. He's hopefully going to be doing he's going to be publishing a book about his story, and we hope that it'll be employed pretty soon.
Indeed, and we'll leave it there. Arne Menconi, activist and spokesman for Jeffrey Sterling, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.